Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and I have for you today another Inktober prompt. This one is a bit of an experiment. I bought myself a box of the Karin Brushmarker Pros and they look a little bit like this. It's a very shiny box and these are basically water soluble markers and they have this sort of liquid ink formulation and you can actually see it in the barrel, which is really handy as well. They have this gorgeous brush nib on them and I wanted to do an entire picture using these and I thought that the prompt tread was as good as any. So let's go to top down view and you can see what I have been up to for day 20 of Inktober. Let's get going. So this is quite funny because I remember in the last Inktober video I was banging on about how I never use a ruler. The reason for the ruler is because I am doing a 1 point perspective here, so it's one of the very few times where it is super duper important to make sure that you do use a ruler. So I'm just setting out my guidelines here. As I said in the intro, I wanted to do an entire picture with these Brushmarker Pro pens. One of the first things that always kind of creeps into my head is into that sort of landscapey type thing. I did want to avoid doing a forest scape though because it is kind of like my default when I'm trying out new supplies, and I didn't want that for myself because Inktober is about challenging yourself. I also didn't want it for you guys either because you've seen enough of those videos in the last little while. So my idea was with the prompt tread, I thought about tyre treads as in leaving tyre marks, and I looked up a bajillion different tyre patterns and realised that they were all super duper complicated. And one of the things aside from using colour this year that I have sort of implemented upon myself is to stick to a time limit for each prompt and each day. I am a person that is always pushed for time, so I decided to go with a tractor tyre tread, which I think will agree is quite fitting. So moving on to the actual picture itself and what I'm actually doing here, I'm starting to bring in the colour now, and basically I'm just going straight onto the sketchbook with the markers here, and it is an ELO sketchbook. While these are good sort of all-rounder sketchbooks, they don't take a huge amount of water. The paper is quite smooth, so I was trying to balance out that idea with using this water brush to take advantage of the solubility of these inks. Now I just want to make it clear, I absolutely freaking love these pens. They are so vibrant and they're so versatile. So I'm jumped between using the actual pen on the paper, but also you can see there that little palette that I was messing about with earlier. I have been putting the ink into the palette and then diluting it down with some water and using it more as a paint. So that's been quite nice to test out on this paper. And I can build up some layers with it and you can see already that the paper is starting to buckle, but the ELO can take it. It really can. You're not going to poke a hole in the paper with these sketchbooks, which is one of the reasons why I love them so much. So moving on here, I wanted this sort of cast light over this perspective view, and I think with the yellow I could have gone a bit braver and a bit darker, because when I've gone over with this sepia colour here, which is going to be the tyre kind of ruts if you like, it really doesn't show up, and the idea is obviously that the light is shining over the back part of the picture, so I could have been braver with that. Moving on here, I didn't really know what to do with these side parts, and this green looks really, really dark. It does lighten up as it dries, but again, it was just a case of try out with what you've got. I had 26 colours to work with here, which when you're working with ink is quite a lot. One thing though, with it being a brush marker, I knew that you were going to see the brush strokes on the paper, again with it being quite smooth paper. I really felt that it didn't matter though, especially these parts at the sides, because they were going to be in shadow. And you can see here, this was like my favourite part of the drawing because I was kind of freehanding it here, and I'm just putting in this silhouette of like a tree line, and I was basically just popping in lots of lumpy bumpy bits and sticking in an odd tree branch here and there. I have a thing about dark areas of paper because I tend to favour really light desaturated colours. I get my kind of fancy on when it comes to doing silhouettes, and also black paper as well, which I don't know, it's just one of those things I've got a thing about. So my thinking was that those sort of side areas that are in the dark green, which is supposed to be a field, they would be mostly in shadow because there's this tree line. I think I could have made the tree line thicker and taller, you know, to sort of depict that blocking off of the light more. So I think I kind of missed a trick with that bit. But as I say, this was all just an experiment from start to finish. So I'm putting in the fence here, and I wanted to keep that sort of old-fashioned hand erected fence. And if anybody stays in the country or is of a farming background like me, you'll know what I'm talking about. I didn't want a uniform fence. I wanted a ramshackle fence. So I was trying to balance between keeping the perspective of the picture but having that sort of slightly dishevelled look at the same time. And I think I've done okay with it. I don't know, if I had more time, it's something I would probably have put a lot more effort into, but under the circumstance, I was quite happy with it. Moving back to the tyre ruts here, I just felt they looked a bit flat, so I wanted to add in a little bit more of the ink over the top. And again, this is the same colour that I've used underneath, but just in a slightly heavier concentration, because the bottom layer was quite, come on Jem, words, spit it out. The bottom layer was quite diluted, there we go. So I felt that just helped to add a little bit of dimension. I swithered here with this lighter brown, whether to go over the yellow area, but as I said earlier about how light it was, I decided just to kind of like join them together, and that is easily done with just using a water brush. So here are my tyre treads, and at this point I was so glad I picked tractor tyre treads. If I had gone from one of the more intricate patterns, I would have been here all day. Trying to balance that with the perspective of the picture is something that I found quite difficult, and I don't seem to have the discipline when it comes to repetitive patterns, and I talked about this in my last Inktober video as well. I get bored so easily, and much as I'm a person that likes rules and precision and processes and logical patterns, when I have to do it repeatedly with my left hand, it just makes me not want to do it. I felt as if I rushed these tyre treads, which has annoyed me because it was the entire point of the prompt. But under the circumstance, again, I think I kind of found that balance between what I like, what I don't like, and the discipline. But when you look at the picture, and I can see it now, I'm looking on the monitor as I'm doing this voiceover, it looks as if it's two different tyres. So that was a fail on my part. So I have taken that into account, and I shall remedy that for the next time that I'm doing any sort of repetitive pattern. So here I'm just trying to add a bit of texture to the middle part and join up that light area with the sort of lighter brown that I've used for the muck in the middle of the track. And on this left hand side, I'm just kind of going back to what I did before. Now you can see there, you see that sheen on the paper. That is the ink sitting on top of the paper because it is very, very smooth. Now it did dry in quite quickly, but I was having to be quite careful with how many layers of the neat pen that I was putting down, because what was going to happen was I was going to stick my dirty great big hand in it and then smush it everywhere, which is what we didn't want. So yeah, that was, as someone who doesn't use pens and ink an awful lot, I've got to be frightfully aware of that to make sure that I don't mess anything up, especially since I was filming at this time. So I'm not entirely sure about this grass verge either. I think it looks more like a border in someone's garden, but well, you know. Again, limitations, what can you do? So back to my ramshackle fence on this side. And I found this side a lot easier, and you can see that I was much quicker just as I was doing it because I'd already done it before. And again, just trying to keep the same thing, that sort of hand-built fence. And back to another favourite part. So I thought I would mix things up a wee bit and put a nice wee house on the horizon on this side. But I could do this all day. See if someone just painted like a really bland landscape, I could sit and draw silhouettes on it all day. I'd have like this whole intricate forest going on, and there would be a story behind it and everything. So I thoroughly enjoyed this part. It's just really good fun, and a chance to kind of just go for it and freestyle a wee bit. It's kind of cool. So starting to look a bit more like a finished picture here. This grey pen I have used to draw the shadows in, and it's come up really well on the left hand side because I haven't got as much of the dark green ink. It was just like one quick swish, and you can actually see that they stand out better on that left hand side than the shadows on the right hand side. So anyway, yeah, that's it. I always put the prompt and things at the bottom just for reference. I'd love to know what you think about this. What do you think about the Karin markers? and anything else that I have mentioned in this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, you can give it a thumbs up, and we shall see you next time back in the cave for more fun with art stuff. Have a good day everyone, bye for now.